Welcome back to the program. You're listening to Business in Vancouver on Roundhouse Radio 98.3. We're the daily business news program from the Business in Vancouver newspaper and BIV.com. I'm Kirk LaPointe.
I'm Haley Wooden. It's time now for our bi-weekly Management Matters segment. This week, we're breaking down what it takes to start a business. And with us, of course, Mark Wardell, president and founder of Wardell International. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I have to imagine being an entrepreneur, setting out on your own, being your own boss, it has a certain allure, right?
It does.
It's appealing.
It does, yeah.
But how do you figure out, first of all, whether this is a path that you should take?
So starting a business, which I guess is our topic today, starting a business is exciting. Like you say, exciting idea, thrilling idea, motivating idea. And of course, I'm all in favor of it. I think starting a business is terrific for the economy, and it's what I want more and more from immigration. I mean, I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurs and people starting companies. But I think it's also really important to talk about the downside just a little bit as well, so that people kind of get a realistic understanding of what they're getting into.
We've come to the right place, because that's what journalism's all about, Mark.
Let's get some controversy going
we
here.
entirely talk about the downside of everything. Yeah. So what's the downside?
Yeah. So I mean, the downside, I guess, depending on your perspective, is for sure 12-hour days, right? For sure working on weekends, and very likely losing a lot of money, making no money for a good long period of time. Friends and family telling you you're crazy and that you're not going to be able to make it. Not being able to see your friends and family when you want to. Like, all these kind of things are reality, and you have to be prepared and the kind of person that accepts and is willing to have the risk. Now, the upsides, of course, are all kinds of potential. You could grow the company.
So what do you think it says about us that so many people start businesses in the face of all this?
Well, I think entrepreneurs are a little crazy people, a little bit. I think to be successful, here's what I think. I think that God makes entrepreneurs a little naive and a little dumb, a little naive, a little dumb, and a little stubborn. And here's why I think, and I think there's a reason that this is for the case. I mean, I'm half joking, but I think this is because when you start a business, you're quite convinced that it's going to be easier, cheaper, and faster to get where you want to go. So you go, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, totally, I could do that. Let's go for it. And then you're halfway through and you realize, holy crap! Oh, can I say that on TV? Oh, sorry. my goodness, I gotta watch more.
You can usually say more.
Can I say? Okay, I watch myself.
This is 27.
Awesome. But yeah, you get halfway through and you go, wow, like this is craziness. But you're stubborn enough that you're going to go, well, no, you know what? I am going to keep going now, and I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to make it until I get to the end. So that's my sort of take on what it takes to kind of jump off a cliff, so to speak, and be an entrepreneur. But there's so many great things that can happen if you do that.
So you mentioned the key of stubbornness. It's going to keep you going through. You have to be persistent, right? Especially when you face those barriers. What other skills are sort of crucial to be successful at business and stomach some of the risks you may have to stomach?
So most people start companies because they love their thing, right? They're a baker. They love baking, so they start a bakery, or they love whatever the service they provide, the welding, whatever it is, sort of steel fabricator, whatever they love their thing, and that's okay, and that's good if that's motivation to get you started. But you really got to understand that it's a totally different skill set building a company. Unless you're just going to be a solo entrepreneur, that's okay. But if you're going to go beyond yourself, hire people, build something, it's a whole different skill set. It's an entirely different thing. And in fact, you have to fall in love with business. You have to want to learn about business. You got to learn to read an income statement, a balance sheet. You got to learn about finance. You got to learn about sales. We talked about that in lots of episodes. You have to be a great salesperson if you're going to succeed in business, whether you love it or don't love it.
Do you have to get a little bit away from your own personality, though, in a lot of cases? Because I think people are generally a little more generous in life than probably you have to be when you're starting a business, when every dollar that you're handing out is a dollar that really you might want to keep.
It's a very interesting point. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, the sort of the nice guy type syndrome, and this is for good reason, because you start businesses very often because you want to contribute to the world, right? You have this idea that can make something better, a new idea, improve, provide a better service, whatever. So you're a giver, often by nature. Entrepreneurs are givers by nature, but cash flow is everything in a business. And if you are not very careful, what I tell people is, look, get past a certain point, generate a certain amount of income, and you can do it. Bill Gates did. Obviously, he's kind of
be
at the top of the hill
later on.
Build what you need to build. Focus on that. Learn about that. Then you can be benevolent.
So when do you know that your idea is actually a good idea that can be a good business?
It's a good question. So, first I say take a look at your market. Is it a big? What is the opportunity, and what little piece of that might you have right now, and what are the competitors doing in that environment? Looking at your competitors is really important, because if there's nobody in that market space, sometimes people think, hey, that's fantastic, there's a huge opportunity here. But you also need to be aware that maybe there's a reason why nobody else is in that space as well, right? So take a genuine look at the marketplace, because that's what you're going to try to expand into and grow into, to get a sense of what the potential you have is for that business for growth.
How often does an entrepreneur's feelings around what they're working on sort of cloud that judgment? And they know it's a good idea. They maybe see the vision at the end of the road, but aren't sure how to get there.
This is like the Dragon's Den question or something, right? Where you see people on that show, which I love that show. It's so awesome. But you see people there that are so in love with their thing, right? So they're blinded.
Yeah, I think they purposely bring delusional people on that show.
Probably, and they edit it. They edit it to make it even more like we do here. No, okay, yeah, but there is some truth to that, though. I mean, I've absolutely seen people that continue to pound it away way past when they should have. So you have to. I think finding advisors to bring them into your life, mentors. I've had an advisory board for Wardell since day one, and it's been very, very helpful for me. We meet, I bounce my ideas off of them. They tell me if I'm crazy or if it's got and of course, make sure the people that are advising you are people that have actual business experience. Your cousin will give you lots of advice, who maybe is a school teacher or a truck driver, and those are great professions, but they may not be the right person to give you advice about growing your company. So make sure you get proper advice, find a mentorship, and kind of tied to that whole mentorship thing is watch your ego a little bit, because as entrepreneurs, sometimes we really feel invincible. We know we're going to make it. We're confident. We're self-confident. We're just going to go for it. But you need to have to let that settle down and open your mind to advice from people that have been there and done that, and really hear that advice.
Are certain types of people attracted to this, Mark, on the basis of being almost like serial entrepreneurs? People who say, I started that 3 years ago. I've kind of got it out of the woods. I now have traction. I'm going to start another one. Yeah. Is that a different type of startup person than the other type?
Yeah, you're right. So there's people that are excellent at getting a business off the ground, and then there's managing and growing a business, which is kind of a different skill set altogether. And if you want to, you have to kind of know yourself. You even take personality tests. Those are terrific things to kind of get an honest sense of, are you the kind of person that's great at starting a business? Or maybe you really should be, if you want to be in business desperately because you love the idea of it, but startup, the risk and all that is just too much for you. Maybe you should buy a business, or maybe you should buy a franchise. I mean, there's other ways to go about getting yourself into business than necessarily being a startup. Is exciting for a certain personality. I like it. My risk tolerance is pretty high, and so I enjoy jumping into new things, but not everybody does. So you got to understand yourself, understand where your skill set is, understand if you're a people person, a manager type personality, a growing type personality, or a starting type personality.
We're speaking to Mark Wardell, president and founder of Wardell International. This is our bi-weekly Management Matters segment, and we're talking about what it takes to really start a business. You mentioned maybe taking advice from your cousin with a grain of salt, right? What do you think about the idea of mixing business with friends and family? Because many small businesses, they are, in fact, family businesses.
Absolutely. So be scared of that. Everybody does it anyway. Nobody will listen to me. Nobody will listen to this advice, but I'm going to give it anyway. Be careful about going into business with friends in terms of partnerships and in terms of hiring. So there's two sides to that we can talk about. Maybe the partnership side for a second first, sure. Because I've seen some beautiful partnerships work, some beautiful partnerships work. But most of the time, I've seen utter and complete disasters. And there are lots of businesses that I won't name that I know very well right around this city with multiple owners that hate each other. I mean, just can't stand each other. And I see that a lot, and it's sad. Like, it's really sad.
Oh, because the two component elements, each on his or her own, would have been very successful. Combined, it's what? oil and water, right?
Because one person has one type of set of goals and values often, and another person, and when you're sort of friends at first, it's like
that doesn't take long.
It's like a relationship. No, not at all. But it's like a relationship. People, you should date a while before you get married. You should get to know a person really well before you become a business partner with them, really, really well, because it is absolutely like a marriage, and maybe even more so.
But that self-understanding, though, also requires that on occasion you do, in fact, go and find a partner because you recognize, as you started the business, that maybe you lack a certain set of skills.
Right. So the question is, should that be a partner or should you hire that? And you have to make that decision. And of course, that some people should do one and some people should do the other. I mean, Jimmy Pattison is pretty squarely in charge of his organization. But if you've ever met Maureen Chant, you sure know that she is a really important, influential sort of yin and yang component to that relationship, right? Other situations, like, let's say, go back in history, because I'm a huge fan of the Disney Corporation and Walt Disney and Roy Disney, two brothers. Everybody knows about Walt. Huge, he's obviously the figurehead and the face and the creative genius. A lot of people don't know about Roy, who was his brother that loved him and was passionate about what Walt's ideas were and followed him around with a notebook and a pad of paper, figuring out how to pay for all of his ideas. So that's an example where it worked really, really well. Now, when it comes to hiring friends and family, make sure that if you had to, that you could fire them and your relationship would be okay. This is the thing people have to be aware of. Things don't always work well. And when they don't, you're stuck in a situation where you have to make tough decisions.
Besides,
it's not easy.
Bill Morneau's taking care of what we're going to take for our families. Yeah, he's pretty much taking care of that one. So
I could talk for hours about that.
Let's not go.
That's a whole other segment.
Whole other show.
Yeah. What about raising money from friends and family? In the tech world, it's called your family, friends, and fool round sometimes, but in business broadly, a good idea, a bad idea?
So, similar, of course, realize that when you take money from friends and family, they need to understand full well that this money could be, in fact, you should tell them, assume this money is lost, but I'm going to try to help you make a lot of money, and make sure you have your own skin in the game. I think it's 75%, this was a Harvard study, actually, 75% of venture-backed companies fail. So now think about that for a second. Why would venture-backed companies, talking about investors, fail at a higher rate than businesses where a person has their own money in the company? And if you think about it, it's kind of clear when you go back to the stuff we talked about at the beginning.
When you have your own material,
skin in the game,
you watch it more carefully.
You watch the bottom line. When push comes to shove, you're willing to do whatever it takes. That one extra hour, that extra phone call, that whatever it is, you're willing to do it because you have to. And this is I started my company with my own money. It was tough. At one point we were negative $200,000 back when I was about 30 years old. My first business I did was in real estate. I was literally through some unscrupulous relationship with somebody who I won't name, but was a Vancouver person actually. I ended up losing and being negative $200,000, which was not a lot to some people, but at 30 years old,
no. For a lot of people, that makes you curl up in a fetal position under the desk and say, "I'm never going to try this again."
But if you know that it's all on you, you have no choice, and so you stand up and you just go, and eventually, you make it.
Yeah.
There you go, Mark. As always, a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
It's been fun. Thanks.
That's Mark Wardell, president and founder of Wardell International, joining us for our bi-weekly Management Matters segment. You're listening to Business in Vancouver on Roundhouse Radio 98.3. I'm Haley Woodin.
And I'm Kirk LaPointe. Stay with us.